Hello and welcome to an IELTS Writing Part 2 video. In this series of videos we're going to look at an IELTS 2 questions type of essay. So this is for both general IELTS and academic IELTS, it doesn't matter. Before we look at the actual exam statement, let's have a look at a checklist which is quite useful to use when analysing or looking at an exam task, 2 questions. So the first one here, what is the general topic of the exam task, like always. The second one, what are the specific details of the 2 questions? So there'll be 2 questions, what are the details in each one? And the last thing to think about is what is your answer to the 2 questions. So in this video we're going to have a look at these first 2 points here. The exam task we're looking at is this one here. It was sent to me by a student, I don't know where it's from. If we put it as nowadays we are producing more and more rubbish. Why do you think this is happening? What can governments do to help reduce the amount of rubbish? So if you put it into a search engine, did I copy that? If you put it into a search engine, you'll see that it comes up here on this IELTS mentor site, Test Big, IELTS online tests, IELTS practice org, essay forum. So it seems to be an incredibly popular question. My guess is it's from the Cambridge IELTS practice test books, but I don't know. But it's a good question. So let's have a look at it. So the first thing in our checklist there was, what is the general topic? The general topic. And you probably saw there, nowadays we're producing more and more rubbish. So the question is about producing rubbish. So very little detail. We're not talking about recycling rubbish, we're talking about producing rubbish. Okay, producing rubbish is the general topic. Okay, the next thing to think about is what are the specific details, So this is very important. If you want to get a 6 or above, or even a 5, you need to get the general topic correct. If you want to get a 7, 8 or 9, you need to include all the specific details. Sometimes it's called parts. So let's have a look at our exam question. Where is the first question? Nowadays we're producing more and more rubbish. Well, before that question here, producing more and more. So more and more rubbish. That's incredibly important. I'll put that here. It's not part of the questions. We're producing more and more. It'd be quite easy to write something like, nowadays we make a lot of rubbish. Okay, so that's connected with the general topic of producing rubbish. We make a lot of rubbish. But we don't have this idea of more and more. And that's one of the specific details. So it's important to get that. It's not about the fact we produce rubbish. It's about the fact that we're producing more and more. So there's a difference. The next thing to think about here when we look at it, nowadays we're producing more and more rubbish. There's another important word in this sentence. Which word is important in this sentence? I mean nowadays, but you've got that in our producing. We. That's another important thing, we. So I'll chuck that here again. It's not part of the questions. We. Okay, so maybe the specific details of the questions and topic. Put that there. Okay, so we, so it's not companies, it's not people exactly, it's we. So here you obviously have to make a guess what is we, and logically we is not, let's say, people who are over 80. I mean, it's possible, but no. So here I think it generally means people are producing more and more rubbish. Okay, what about the first question? This is it here. Why do you think this is happening? So this, it means that more and more. We are producing more and more. So why are we producing more and more? That's the first one. Why are we more and more? Okay, that's the first, the specific details there. The second question, what's the second question? What can governments do to help reduce the amount of rubbish? So looking at this sentence, what can governments do? What do you think are some key words in there? If you want, press pause and think. Okay, what can governments? That's incredibly important. What can governments? Because you can see that IELTS can be a bit difficult. Here we have we, but here it changes all of a sudden to government. So it's asking us, what can governments do to help reduce the amount of rubbish? And then to help reduce. I think that's a little detail, that one, to help reduce. So the governments don't have to directly reduce. They can also help to reduce. So that's it. You don't need to talk about what people should do. You're not asked to talk about what businesses should do to help reduce the amount of rubbish. And also, perhaps it's worth underlining, we have to reduce the amount of rubbish. So that's quite interesting if you think about it. We've got more, but we want to reduce the amount of rubbish. We don't want to just stop the increase. We want to actually reduce it. Yeah, so some typical mistakes with people, like I said, people would say, you know, we produce a lot of rubbish and this is a big problem. What are the reasons for this problem? I mean, that's okay, what are the reasons for this problem? But, you know, you do want to talk about we there somewhere. And when answering that first question. And then, so you forget about more. And then the other one, when talking about the second question, people might start talking about businesses or people in general. The first thing people should do is, but that's wrong. You have to focus in on the first thing the government can do. Okay? I suppose that's the last point to think about. What can the government do? So it's not should, it's can. So when you're answering that, to be more specific to the exam question, you can say the first thing the government's, or one of the options the government has is to, one of the options, one of the ways, one of the paths, one of the variants, one of the abilities they have, the capabilities. So anything that links in with can. Now, I think if you said the first thing the government should do, I don't think it's a big, you're not overgeneralizing in a big way. But it's always good to pay attention to the specific question. Okay, so that's it for this video. We had a look at the general topic. We had a look at the specific details of each part. And if we can include all of them, let's have a look at the Ielts criteria. Okay, we see we have the criteria here. Task achievement, how you answer the question. If you want to get a 9, where is it there? If you want to get the 9 here for how you answer the question, one second. Okay, if you want to get a 9 here, you can see that it says this part here fully addresses, and it says here all parts of the task. All parts of the task. So that's why we had a look at those specific details, because we want to get a 9, and in order to get a 9, we need to address all parts of the task and include only what it says here, relevant information. Okay, that's it for the first video. In the next video, I'll look at some of my ideas for the topic. If we have a look at that checklist, the last point of the checklist, you know, what is your answer to the 2 questions? I suppose, what are your answers? What are your answers to the 2 questions in the next video? And then after that, we'll look at an example answer and assess it according to these Ielts writing 2 criteria. If you want, you can stop there and try and write it by yourself. If you want, you can watch the next video to see what my ideas are about the topic. I really recommend you press pause or not watch the next video, but think about your ideas first. And then if you don't want to watch my ideas, then feel free to watch the 3rd video in the series, which is looking at an example answer. Okay, that's it. If you like that, please like, and if you want to, subscribe. Give me some encouragement to keep making these for everyone. I hope it helps. Any questions, please feel free to ask me below.